just respecting others. I mean, it's not I don't have like a science to it, you know what I mean? But it's more of just when people interact with me, I just want them to know that, like, okay, Bruce really does want to be here. Like, he's not just here to collect a check.
Right.
Like, he really enjoys spending time with me, and like, we're laughing, we're kicking it, stuff like that.
Let's link up with Krista on the Fix. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What is up, y'all? It is Coach Krista, and I am back on our latest episode of The Fix. Today, we are linking up with another Charlotte connection because I love to stay in touch with all my Charlotte people out there, and was recording this on a little tour of the city when I go back. And I am sitting with my friend, Bruce, of B.A.W Photography, sometimes known as the guy with the dope content t-shirts. So if you've seen him around Charlotte, if you're in the fitness scene, he is a content creator who focuses on a lot of different types of events and venues. Right before we hit record on this, we were talking about how he is so versatile that he shoots both weddings and CrossFit competitions. So I think that's a testament to who you are as a creator and the type of eye that you have. And I'm very excited to have you on the show today. So welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Good. I'm happy to have you. I don't know if anybody's told you this when you've been on other podcasts, but when I listened to you on the podcast with Stu, I was like, wow, he has a really good voice for podcasting.
Oh, well.
It's very pleasant to listen to, so maybe you should start a
I
podcast.
may need to do that. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll mark that down.
Yeah, you should.
Thanks.
So there's your business idea
There
for
you
the
go.
day.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned before when we were prepping for the show, my first question for all of my guests is 45 seconds, not going to time you, but if I was, keep it succinct. Who the heck are you? Why should we care about you, your personality, what you do, your story?
All right. So once again, Bruce Williams. I am from Northern Virginia. I have been involved in fitness my entire life. I grew up playing baseball, went off to college and played baseball. So I think that has a lot to do with my love for shooting fitness. I've always lifted. I've always done CrossFit, been in global gyms, LA Fitness, et cetera, things like that. So I'm really passionate about what I do. So, I mean, if you come across me, when you see me work, you're going to see my work ethic is hard. I'm not going to be slacking. I'm big on, showing pride in my work, and hopefully all my clients feel the same way. And it goes the same thing with fitness and with weddings. With weddings, I mean, many brides tell me, "Oh, I'm crying."
Yeah.
To me, that's
the best feedback you can get, right?
I'm good. Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah. I don't care what anybody else says. You cried. I'm good. So, I just want people to know, like, I work hard. I put in the work, and I love what I do.
And I think that's really evident because, we were talking about how it's so easy to connect with people on social media if we kind of run in the same circles but have never met in person. The people who work really hard, especially in the content creation sphere, obviously your website, your Instagram, anything that you're putting online is, of course, your resume. And it's very apparent from the quality of the work that you're posting, just because you love it, not to be like, hey, look at what I made, like in a braggadocious way, that you do really care about what you do and you do really enjoy it. So I think that's great. And I know that I actually didn't know this before I listened to another podcast, but I know that this was kind of a side hustle for you in the beginning. So that is how I myself got into fitness. So that'll definitely come up in our conversation because I always love for people to talk about that transition, what it's like.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people out there who I think have the side hustle thing going and they're afraid to make the leap. And it's always great to hear it from somebody who's done it. And even if it's tough, and it is, and you might look super successful on the outside and we're panicking on the inside, it's good to kind of hear the tea from somebody who's done it or is going through it. So, but before we get into all that, next question, same for every episode, is what is your go-to coffee order? And if you don't drink coffee, it's okay.
Right. Yeah. So
tell us what your morning routine is.
So I do not drink coffee.
Have you ever drank coffee?
No, so I tried it when I was, interning and stuff.
Yeah, like college.
I was like,
didn't like the taste.
That's what all the cool people are doing, before work. So let me try it.
Yeah.
I just don't like it. My wife loves coffee. we have like 3 coffee machines, in the house. And but I'm like a vanilla chai latte. I'll drink that all day.
Okay, so you still have like a warm drink that you like to go for.
100%,
Yeah.
Vanilla chai latte. I'm good all day with that.
Nice. Do you like any other kinds of tea?
I like tea. Not a big fan of tea.
Okay.
But
You're just like a water guy.
Yeah.
Keep it straightforward.
Yeah, water. Your Gatorades and
Your sports drinks.
Yeah, pretty
okay.
much. Yeah.
Do you go for any like energy drinks?
Yeah, I'm kind of guilty.
Okay. It's all right.
I have my occasional.
I asked because I feel like, and this could be totally stereotyping, but people in your field tend to pull like crazy hours when they're editing things.
So true.
So I figured you might rely on Red Bull.
I'll hit my reins. I'll hit my bangs and my Red Bulls. Yeah, 100%. Even at competitions, like if anyone's seen me like shooting,
you usually have like a bang in your hand.
Honestly, people will come up to me and be like, "Hey, you good?" And they'll bring
what they have.
Yeah, I have a real good friend who comes to my competitions, and she'll be like, she brings a cooler.
Nice.
And
she'll put a little extra in there for you.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Keep me going.
Yeah. No, it's important though. I was listening to somebody giving advice on how to get into podcasting and how to get started. And one of the number one pieces of advice that people give when you're new to it, especially if you're going to record solo shows, which I haven't really delved into yet. I did a trailer and obviously that was just me talking, but I'm only like 8 episodes in. And somebody said, you basically need to have the energy, and you're not talking to anyone. Like, you're talking into a microphone and talking to the wall, right? Yeah. You need to have the energy of like 16 Red Bulls to keep people engaged, because there's nothing worse than when you're listening to a podcast. And I don't know if you've heard these podcasts before or how much of a listener you are, and you can tell that the person sounds uninterested, or if they're interviewing someone else, distracted, because you can hear them like typing on their keyboard. It sends the cue to the listener, I'm interviewing someone and I'm so uninterested in what they're saying that I'm not even listening. So like, you shouldn't listen either. Yeah. So you got to get that like hype kind of energy, which is the same for being a fitness coach. Like when I go teach a group fitness class, I want them to think I'm like, just like annoyingly peppy.
Bouncing off the wall.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and plus, it motivates them too when they see that. So.
Exactly. You're like, you want to have that vibe of like, you are the happiest, most energetic, like Energizer Bunny type person.
What is she on?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's that stuff? Yeah. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about your background and your story. And then I do ultimately think that kind of the direction of our conversation will be more to take it to present day, looking at the importance of professional content, why fitness studios and companies that are trying to build brands with needing a virtual presence with everything that's happened in the past year, why it's so important to give off that polished look even on their Instagram, and dedicating the time, the energy, and really the financing to be able to hire somebody like you and get it done the right way. But before we get into all of that, tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are today. So you mentioned baseball, you mentioned you're from Virginia. How'd you get to Charlotte?
All right. So I was a personal trainer at LA Fitness back home in Woodbridge, Virginia. And I had this CrossFit Woodbridge, the owner there, was always bugging me like, hey man, come try CrossFit. And I was like, y'all are crazy. Like I have no desire to go in there.
Yeah. I had the same attitude towards it, but I think people, like, if they knew you were an athlete, they like assume that you would really like it if you had some professional experience.
Yeah, you love to compete.
Right.
For you, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I was like, all right, I'll try it. I go in there and try it out. I get smoked by like this 17-year-old girl, like burns me. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm in.
What were you? Do you remember the workout?
It was something like a 400-meter run,
like some kind of AMRAP type thing.
Yeah, it was 400-meter run and like some deadlifts, and then run again, come back, deadlift, and I was like, I got to do this again. So anyway, I was like signed up. I was like, I'm in. So I join, and then I find out the price of it. I'm like, I can't afford to pay for this membership. I was like, well, I was getting into photography, I was shooting, and I was like, well, how about I provide you workout of the day photos for my membership? So I would provide them photos, and they would post it with the WOD of the day, and that's how I pay for my membership. Then that led to, shooting other trainers, and then those trainers' families and all that. So it took off from
So at the time, because I know now you were doing a lot of competitions and that sort of thing. But at the time, for those purposes, was it really more of like those professional shoots where someone was doing like a branding shoot?
So
no?
At first,
because that wasn't really a thing back then, right?
At first, literally, I was doing like your
Really
I
basic.
mean, just your simple shooting in a class.
Okay.
Delivering a photo, and then maybe I think I did one like website shoot.
Okay.
But it was like, I look at it now, like the lighting's horrible.
You're like,
I
I can't believe I produced
so
that.
bad.
Yeah.
And then, me and my wife, we got married and we moved to Charlotte. And her mom was here. Her brother and sister-in-law are here. My sister's here.
Okay.
So we moved up here. And honestly, when I moved up here, it kind of like took off. I linked up with Reebok Uptown CrossFit,
Yeah.
and I shot Pamela Gagnon.
Nice. Yeah.
And then from then on, it was like, okay.
She's super well known,
Yeah.
so I'm sure that was kind of like you're in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and those kind of took off, and then I linked up doing Superfit competitions,
Cool.
which were huge. And from then, man, the word of mouth just spread like crazy.
And how much do you think that has to do with the fact that CrossFit is such a network? Like, at the time when CrossFit really got popular, and you compare it, I don't want to call it a franchise because it's technically not operated that way. You are paying like the licensing fees, but I think at the time, you could compare it to say like Orange Theory, how if you had a membership, you could pop into any gym, but there's so many of them and it's not as niche. Whereas there's something about CrossFit, it's sort of like, oh, you do CrossFit, me too. So we're like automatically cool with each other. Do you think that really helped your career?
Oh, 100%. I can't really name the amount of businesses I've shot for, or weddings I've shot, or engagements I've shot, or, apparel branding I've shot, because someone knows.
The original connection was
someone
CrossFit.
Someone knows someone who goes to CrossFit.
Sure.
It's like, oh yeah, I know this guy. He shoots CrossFit. Hire him. So yeah, it's been huge. And
That's amazing.
I try to be. I always tell other shooters about this too. I was like, get out in your community, and even though you're not shooting it, go interact with these people.
Sure.
Let them know, like, I'm here. I'm not just here when you need me, but I'm here. Like,
right. I want to be
part.
I believe in what you're doing.
Exactly.
I want to be a part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. You don't want to be like the awkward guy behind the camera.
No.
Yeah.
Like, he only shows up when he's shooting a gig. Like, no, I'm there. I'm part of the community too.
So where do you work out around here? Maybe you have a different answer with COVID. Maybe pre-COVID and currently.
So I coached for like 6-7 years.
Nice.
And I was a coach at CrossFit Harrisburg.
Okay.
I'm not there anymore, but so now I've just been working out at my gym. My whole gym's laced and all that stuff, so I'm good there. Eventually I will need to join another CrossFit gym, so anybody want me there, holler at me.
PSA.
Yeah.
Bruce is looking for a home gym.
Yeah.
We'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you have, I usually save these kinds of questions towards the end, but we got right into the fitness, so I'm just going to go there.
Okay.
I do like a lightning round and I'll ask you like a bunch of quick hitters.
Okay.
But do you have favorite, we'll put it in the context of shooting. Do you have a favorite movement or type of workout or specific kind of CrossFit competition that you love to shoot for whatever reason?
Yes, as far as a movement, like I love heavy lifting, heavy cleans or heavy snatches.
Anything with the barbell?
Yeah. Gymnastic stuff is really dope too. So like, handstands, muscle ups, toes to bar are sick, especially when you get like hamstrings and stuff like that. So, yeah. Actually, for the bar, I would say definitely toes to bar.
Nice. You get some cool action shots.
Yep.
And for somebody who may be listening to this who is on the content creation side, to get really narrow versus just being an entrepreneur and business focused, what is kind of your advice for a person who's just getting started and maybe has a love for photography but could be intimidated by shooting anything where there's a lot of movement? Because that takes skill, and I'm sure you've watched yourself really develop that over time.
Yeah.
Just as you made the comment about the lighting and probably the way you edited that photo, you probably hated it, right?
I spent like hours editing one photo. I'm like, that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, majority, I tell people, like, just number one, keep shooting. Like, even don't get discouraged because your photos don't look like someone you follow on Instagram.
Yeah, who could have been doing it for years.
Yeah, everyone starts somewhere. So keep shooting, reach out for advice. YouTube saves lives. If you want any tutorials. Like that,
it's so true.
Yeah, always check there. Reach out, use your resources. Like, even if you know people who, like, hey, would you mind, posing for me, or, or can I shoot you while you work out just to get practice? I mean,
Right. And there's so many of us out there who are looking for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have a business consulting service that I offer to people who are online coaches, or even they might be in a totally different industry and they just are trying to sell some sort of product online.
Right.
And I'll work with them, help them really focus on social media. And the number one thing I always tell people is you need to get more professional content, because your feed is going to come off with a different regard if you can show professional photos. And I was just talking to a client of mine yesterday, and we were talking about a photo shoot that she unfortunately wasn't super happy with the product. Okay. And with the situation, the person didn't want to reshoot her photos. And I said to her, I was like, just let it go. Like, we can find somebody else. But I felt bad because I knew she already spent the money on that. And now it's like, oh, you got to go spend the money twice. Yeah. And so I said to her, I was like, instead of trying to find the next photographer who may be costly because they're really good and they have this great reputation, maybe you have a friend who works in like PR or whatever, and they may have like a side hobby doing photography. Yeah. Ask them to shoot something for you.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good idea. Yeah,
because then it's like a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
Because that person wants to build their book. You could get professional shots out of it, and then you're good, and you can continue to promote them. Yeah. They build their resume, you add to that notoriety, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of shooters out here who are in that same, you know, that point of their, I don't want to say career, but
sure.
At that point, you know, like, hey, I'm just trying to build myself up. There's plenty of shooters out there who want that, but a lot of them are scared to even.
Exactly. Like, they don't want to brand themselves and be like, hey, if you want to shoot, like, let me do it.
Yeah. I have plenty of people ask me, they're like, hey, and I want to shoot at my gym, but, you know, I'm scared about messing it up. And I was like, well, if that's the case, you're never going to shoot.
Right.
So, I mean, just do it, man.
So we talked about the fact that you realized you wanted to join CrossFit. It was expensive. That's no secret. It is pretty costly to have a CrossFit membership compared to a lot of other fitness concepts out there. So you said, hey, let me kind of barter with you. What gave you the confidence to pick up the camera in the first place, and what was kind of going through your mind that compelled you to make that suggestion, other than like, hey, I need a way to pay for this?
Yeah. So actually, while I was in Virginia, I had a close friend of mine who, she was actually, you know, she was a personal training client of mine, like an in-home client.
Okay.
So she was paying me, you know, really well.
Yeah, because you were going to her.
Right. Yeah. And she, you know, started off shooting her, and like, honestly, having someone who kind of like tells you your worth and like says like, look, man, you're really good.
Yeah. She kind of gave you that, she noticed.
Right.
You.
Yeah. So hearing that kind of reassures you, like, you know, maybe I am better than what I think I am. So I was like, well, let me just, when I talked to the CrossFit gym owner, he's like, yeah, man, I love your stuff. And in my head, I'm like, man, why don't you tell me that? Like, you know,
right.
A while
so
ago.
At this time, were you just kind of, I mean, I don't know how many years ago this was, so Instagram really hasn't been around that long. When you think about it, where were people seeing your content?
I mean, we're talking, this is MySpace days. So
yeah. Is that where you were posting things?
Well, I had stuff on there. I mean,
Did you have a website at the time?
Course,
okay.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, of course, you had your Facebook.
Right.
Of course, you know, Facebook ruins all your resolution.
I know.
But yeah, Instagram, I wasn't doing that. Literally, most of my stuff was either seen on people's websites, like showing that, you know, I had my little logo in the corner. And then I would have my website, and I would just blast it out on Facebook, like, hey, visit here. And I'd give, like, links to galleries and stuff like that. But that's how most people saw my work.
Okay. And then that was how the word of mouth started virtually.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
And your client that you mentioned that you were training in home, were you doing family shoots for her, or was she letting you mess around and shoot her while working out?
I would shoot her, and then I booked her. I shot her nephew, like I did like his, you know, graduation photos.
Sure.
And then, you know, the next thing you know, someone related to them, I'm shooting their family, and it kind of just, it's a ripple effect. And plus, you know, being in Northern Virginia, I had DC.
Right, it was right there.
Yeah. So I had a lot of, you know, cool spots to shoot.
Totally.
At, so it was super fun.
Totally. And for you, because of your own background with training and being a coach, did you always have the intention when you got into it to focus only on that type of content? And then because of the word of mouth, you got into the more lifestyle? How did those two worlds kind of collide for you? Because it's like we said, it's not different in that you're capturing moments, but it still is different because the environment is nothing alike.
Right. Yeah. So I think as far as like when I started shooting, was fitness like my 100%? I was like, no, it just kind of, I fell into that because that's what I was involved in.
Sure. You were already in that.
Yeah, I was already there. So
community.
It was a super easy transition. So I was doing that. And then, you know, once people started asking like, hey, well, do you do lifestyle photos? can you do headshots?
Sure.
And I was like, well, I mean,
Try.
I have all the gear to do it.
Right.
I'm sure I can do it. And then I started doing that. I was like, oh, I'm pretty good at this too. So, and like you said, I mean, even doing lifestyle photos and even doing fitness, I mean, they all are the same as far as capturing moments, not bad facial expressions, the best attributes of somebody's, body, things like that, so I mean, it's
angles,
all,
all
all that stuff, lighting, it's all the same.
Right. Now talk to me more about the creative process. Let's first talk about capturing the shot, and then we'll talk about editing, because I'm curious if you have any like quirks to your process. But when it comes to capturing shots, beyond lighting, what's the number one thing that you look for?
So beyond lighting, I mean, it's
because the lighting is like, for anybody listening to this who knows, let's say, nothing about photography, if your lighting sucks, you're kind of screwed. Yeah. So I would also like to know, as a piggyback to the first question, what do you do to try to shoot in gyms that just have like horrible fluorescent lighting?
Yeah. So, I mean, with that, I mean, in that case, like, I mean, majority, I'm a big fan of bay doors. So, of course, I'll open those
Get them
up
to open as much as they can to get the natural light. But
so,
what if that's not an option? What do you do?
I'll bring in strobes, or I'll bring in LED lights, match the temperature of my camera. I'll do that. And plus, I mean, a lot of shooters know, like, if you have a good, professional mid-level camera, I mean, you can bump your settings up and even your white balance can suck and be off. But once you get in post, you can kind of change that and make it look right. Yeah. So.
Okay.
But if you can bring light, bring light.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what do you look for to capture that like perfect shot?
I mean,
you can't go in with too many expectations, right?
I mean, I'm big on angles. I'm big on. I always ask whenever I'm shooting, especially a female. I'm like, hey, do you have a favorite side or a side that you don't want?
Yeah.
Shot urge or something you don't want captured. So that's usually the first thing I get out. But I'm big on showing, strong movements. Like if it's a snatch, I want to catch the pull.
Right.
I want to catch the most intense part of that movement.
Okay.
So that's my.
And have you developed that eye, let's call it, from continuing to shoot, or do you think because you yourself are a coach and athlete, you kind of went into it, even if it was subconsciously, knowing that that's the kind of shot that will make for a great photo?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think a lot of it is, me being a coach and doing CrossFit, knowing, all right, in a second, she's going to be in this position.
Sure, because it's a lot about timing, too, when you're going to capture it.
So I kind of know what to look for. And, actually in doing it, I think that helps a lot. And actually with all the competitions I've shot and, practice makes perfect, so I know what doesn't work. I know when not to shoot a female doing double unders.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It's live and learn. So,
yeah. And what, if you could, because I know you've done a lot of work, so I don't know if you have any kind of favorites that jump out at you, but is there an event in your mind, like a competition that you shot at some point in your career that was just like, you look back on those photos and you're super proud of them, or the experience was really fun for you?
Yeah. So, man, it's tough. So I did a shoot for AMRAP for autism.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Which is, I shot it at CrossFit Mayhem in Cookville. So of course, Rich Froning's gym, whatever. So I shot that, and like that experience alone, like I never thought that, like I never thought I'd be here shooting
with that level of a CrossFit athlete.
I never thought I'd be there. And I don't know if you know, but I shoot for Dream on 3.
Yes, I did know that
as well. So I mean, being able to go and travel and meet, Steph Curry, Antonio Brown, all these big time players, like all because community, yes, but also because I know what to do with a camera. I just never thought those things would happen. So
when you picked up that camera and made the wager to pay for your membership that way, I'm sure you had no idea that it was going to lead to any of this.
Like, I'm on a plane flying to Cali to go shoot Steph Curry. Like, that's crazy.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it blew my mind.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now let's take it to the editing side.
Okay.
What is that process like for you? Do you have like a secret sauce that you don't spill to people, or like do you have any kind of like rituals of how you edit?
All right. So as far as I kind of go through a process of, depending on like if it's a lifestyle or if it's a wedding. I mean, I edit different on all of them.
Of course.
But if we're just talking fitness,
yeah. Let's keep it fitness, and then fitness. I do want to talk about weddings. Next.
So for fitness, I mean, as far as going in, I do have a look / swag that I do.
Sure.
And it's come from, a lot of mess ups too. But I like to do the, edgy look. I don't like too much of like a commercial vanilla type look. I like to see something like, oh man, that guy's kind got a little swag to his
Sure.
photos. So I'm big on, colors being not, they don't have to be so true. You know what I'm saying? They can be kind of off a little bit. But as far as the process, I mean, my biggest concern is it sharp? Like I need
like you want it to be like a crisp, like that
yeah.
resolution alone is great from your camera, but then you want the edits to really highlight that,
I need
right?
a good photo. Like I don't, if a foot's cut off, I won't post it.
No.
If a finger's cut off,
right,
I won't post it.
And I think those are small things that if you don't have a lot of experience with content and looking at pictures, because I don't think I shared this with you, but I actually went to school for journalism, so I can shoot a decent video. I can do a little B-roll.
Okay,
I know what to look for. I know about the rule of thirds, which I'm sure
rule
of thirds is the money.
Yep,
I try to shoot a lot of my Instagram content that I make myself with that. Lighting and rule of thirds are the most important.
Facts.
And I think it's really funny when people don't realize how I learned this in a journalism course in college. Like, it looks terrible if you cut off the tip of someone's head, or if you take a headshot and you stop it at their waist. Like, you're literally making the person look like their body's missing. Like, you have to be very particular about where those things are cropped.
Yep, 100%.
And other people don't notice that. I think it's because, and I'd love your opinion on this, they can like tell there's something wrong with the picture, but they don't know what it is. Like, it looks weird, but they can't put their finger on why.
I agree with that. Yeah,
right.
Like, they're not going to be like, I think if her head wasn't cut off right there, I'd think differently. They're just like, it just doesn't look
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been plenty of times where, like if someone's running and like if you take a photo of their leg kicked back up, it looks like they're missing a limb.
Right, exactly.
Like you have to learn your angles and when to shoot. And I've seen people post those photos. I'm like, come on, man. I mean,
if you just like waited one more split second, you could have gotten the shot.
Yeah, shot a different angle.
Sure.
You could at least saw her foot or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, definitely important.
So what kind of, you said a lot of trial and error went into that. What kind of, were there any mess ups that you had in the beginning that were super frequent? Or did you kind of learn quick, like once you went through a specific album and you're like, damn, I missed that because I lost XYZ thing?
Well, yeah, I went through a phase where like I used to hit the clarity slider way too much. And like I was all about, I wanted it to look like rugged and edgy. And I was like, that's
like
really,
raw.
Yeah, it's really not a good look. So, I mean, I've learned, especially, I don't know, well, people should know this, but maybe not. But I mean, posting to Instagram and stuff, I mean,
it messes with your resolution.
Yeah, you do need to format your photos a certain way if you want it to come across.
Right. And even the whole thing of like, I think a lot of people don't know that if you've had any professional shoots done before, people may have seen the two versions of each file, but I'm sure a lot of people don't know why. But there's like the res for web and then there's the res for print.
Yep. So I always deliver, whenever I deliver photos formatted for social media and for print. And of course, I mean, your print file could be, triple the size of your social media file.
Right.
So, yeah, that's definitely, you have to know when to use those and when not to use them. So, yeah, definitely important.
Mm-hmm. Now, transitioning into some of the lifestyle shoots and even videography. When did you bring that into the fold?
So,
because it sounds like you started mostly with still photography.
100%. Yeah, I started with still, and then I shot Nikon for probably 7-8 years. And then, I was like, well, I really want to start doing video and getting into that. And then I got introduced to Sony.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, let me go ahead and make the switch to Sony where I can shoot and then switch to video, at the drop of the dime and not have to worry about grabbing another camera, right?
Yeah, and like having the whole setup and change.
Yeah. So that started that. Then I started shooting. I started like when I was shooting a competition, I would film like
clips here and there.
And then start stitching them together and stuff like that. And then I was like, all right, well, this is pretty cool. So then I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to buy a dedicated camera
for shooting film.
Strictly filming video. And then I got that and it was, well, do you do weddings? I was like, oh, well, I can do that.
Yeah. Now I do. I got the equipment.
Yeah. So now I bought a second
video
filming camera. So it kind of, I don't want to say like, people ask that and I don't really have like there wasn't a strategy.
There was no like, there was no like day that you woke up and you were like, yeah, I'm going to do this next. Like this is the next step in my career.
I tell people like I have a real strong, strong faith. And like, I just believe that, whatever is meant for you to do, as long as you stay on the right path and you're not, doing people dirty and, doing all that stuff. I feel like things will just line up and I kind of just happen for me. Things just trickle down and just, I don't know, just been blessed pretty much.
And like you said, all it takes is, I think, to speak way more broadly to business in general, because we were talking about this with your printing on your clothing and your apparel. It's referrals are so huge in the types of industries that we're both in. And you know, I think it only makes sense that like someone already established trust, and that's what referrals at the end of the day, on like when it comes down to a value proposition, that's why referrals work. You want to work with people that you trust. And I think something like a wedding, because you even said the best is when you get the feedback from the bride that she cried. Photography and videography is a vulnerable setting for people. Like the way they look at it is vulnerable. And then I think it's even vulnerable for you as the photographer to be like, I really hope they like my stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really tapping into your ability to be able to make somebody feel comfortable. No?
Yeah. I mean, there's like those, even like you said, headshots and things. I mean, you're right. I'm right in their face. And
and it's super obvious to you. I'm sure I've done photo shoots before. I've done them in Charlotte. I was doing a photo shoot with the team at SweatNet, and I was just like really tight that day, and they made me like turn on music and dance around so I would relax. And they have enough experience to notice when they were looking at the pictures that I didn't look like myself, because they knew me and they've seen other photos of me. They know how I move. And so they're like, hey, you need to like take a second. So tell me, in your experience, do you think that was just kind of an innate skill that you had and maybe learned from shooting a lot, or it's something that you had to teach yourself over time?
And you're talking about as far as making people
feel comfortable and like making and kind of like recognizing when it just doesn't seem right, and like taking a step back and like repositioning them or having them take a beat so you can get the shot you're really hoping for.
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, first starting, of course, I mean, I was horrible at posing, and I think at one point I might have brought an assistant along to like, especially
kind of show you what to look
for females. I mean, I had no idea, you know.
You're not a female. You don't know. You don't know like what our like concerns are. You could go ask your wife, but like it's not the same. You don't have the bodily awareness
and now,
of the person.
Now the crazy part is now, like when I'm posing a female, like I'll do the pose too. You're
like, girl.
I was like, oh man, what am I doing? But
you've done it enough times.
Oh yeah,
now.
yeah. Now I'm like, all right, no, put your heel up or your toe up. I'm like, why am I doing this? But yeah, I think just over time, learning and seeing what looks right and what looks bad, kind of and also, I mean, studying, reading, you know, following other photographers, seeing how they pose, you know, things like that.
Who are your kind of go-to photo inspirational people or people you like to learn from? Do you have a mix?
I mean, as far as like creation itself, I mean, I love like, you know, Chris Howe and like Peter McKinnon, and like I love those guys. I just love people who like, you know, think outside of the box whenever they're creating something. And the big thing to me is like the fact that these people are super talented and willing to share their knowledge with people. Because I know in the fitness industry, I mean, other shooters who hear this, they'll know that, I mean, people tend to be very, very protective. Yeah,
I think I'm actually so glad you brought that up, because I have this conversation with other fitness professionals a lot, and you can relate on both levels because you have been a coach. And I was talking to a former coworker about this, and this was her theory. There's something about fitness, and I think it applies to photography too, because it's like ruled and fueled by passion, that people get super protective of their method and their idea, and they get freaked out that it's a saturated industry. And so then they're like, no, like you can't know what I do. And I'm of the opinion that that's so silly, because guess what? A burpee is a fucking burpee, and I don't care how you program it. But if you operate from this place that your programming is superior to any other gym on the market, I don't think that's truly possible. Like, it can be to an extent, and of course, all programming should be deliberate. But for me, I don't see that as somebody, as a future business owner. I don't intend to market a studio as come to my place to get the best programming that doesn't exist anywhere else. I will, of course, say it's the best programming because I designed it and I think it's fantastic. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that it didn't exist anywhere else. It's the environment that I created, the coaches and the way they deliver it, you know, even the cleanliness of the studio is what adds to the experience that's going to make someone want to come to my studio versus one that's probably 3 doors away.
Yes.
And
it's funny. I had a guy who he asked me, he was like, Bruce, what do you do about,
Competition.
another competitive photographer who wants to shoot at your gym? And I was like, you don't worry about them. I was like, you do.
Let them do their thing, and you keep doing yours.
I was like, there's plenty of, we can all eat, like just
exactly.
Just because if you lose to one gym, there's like 20 to the left.
Other gyms out there.
So like, why are you?
Right. It's that whole idea of scarcity mindset. And I'm a firm believer in that idea that if you focus more on keeping your thing to yourself, you can't grow. Whereas if you're generous with your ideas and saying to someone, hey, you're a peer, even though you're my competition and we're potentially pulling clientele from the same pool, I did this thing. This business practice worked super well for me. I'm happy to share that with you.
Yeah.
Those people are always more successful.
I have no problem. I mean, I've had people shadow me
Sure.
on shoots. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I don't.
Right.
I mean, when it all comes down to it, we are two different people.
Yeah.
We're both going to deliver a different product. Even if you shadow me, I'm like, oh, I like how we did that.
You might learn something from them, which is even cooler.
Yep.
And you might they could have a different eye than you, or maybe they edit it slightly differently. Yeah. And it's not to say that their version was bad. They're just different and respected in their own ways. And I think that's the same with fitness. Like, your product is more tangible because you can put the two photos side by side.
Right.
Whereas I think fitness is harder outside of, like, let's say we threw away progress pictures. Like, let's say those didn't exist, because obviously those speak for themselves. Right. And if you don't have them, you're going to have a really hard time selling your concept, right? Results are your resume. It's there. You can't argue about that. But everything else is so subjective. Like, it comes down to the person's personality. And I never like to operate from a place that I'm the trainer for everyone. Because I know there might be people who think, like I said earlier, I want to seem like the Energizer Bunny. Some people that pisses them off. Like, I love to pull on motivational quotes and inspirational sayings. And really, I hate being the coach on the microphone that is repetitive and being like, you got this, you got this. I want to be the person who has taken the time to read some book or something that really inspired me, or listen to a podcast and a story that inspired me. And then I want to weave those lessons into my workout in a way that's my dialogue, the way I speak, vernacular, whatever. And it can come off as kind of preachy, and that's not for everybody. And that's totally cool. I'm not going to be upset if you come and you don't like my workout. It's whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go somewhere else. You're good.
That is fine.
But there's so many people who just I had my episode with a friend of mine. Her name's Biz, and she was in the military. She's an Army vet, and then she's now in the fitness industry, and we talked about this exact thing. And I said to her, it's like, people get so butthurt. Yeah. Like,
I'd never heard that until I moved. I was like, butthurt. I was like, what is that?
Right?
Never heard that until I moved here. But yeah, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah. And it's like, you know what? It's good for you. Like, I think that saturation's actually a good thing, because to me, it means that if something's saturated, there's demand for it. People want it. So that's why everyone keeps getting this idea. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do this.
And to be honest, I mean, I love it because it drives me to do more,
sure,
be more creative. Like, if I'm shooting an event and
that's a great point.
And there's another person shooting there, like, just say they're on the side, they weren't hired and they're shooting. I've seen other photographers be like, hey, you need to stop shooting. But me, I'm like, okay, I need to crush this dude. Because
exactly, to prove my value.
Yeah, to prove that I'm the one shooting the event, and that's why I'm on the floor. Yeah, I'm all for that.
Right, 100%. I agree. And everybody wins that way. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk more about your transition into doing this gig full time and what made you have the confidence to take the leap. I think for most people, and I've heard you say this before, the biggest concern is always that you're walking away from a lot of benefits. Vacation, that's paid. Yes, you can set your own schedule now, but it's different because when you don't work, you don't make money. So how do you come to terms with that?
Yes.
What did you weigh?
So what it really came down to, well, first, I mean, just to let everybody know, I was in IT. I did IT for 20 plus years.
Wow.
And I was a supervisor at a local government agency here.
So you were always coaching on the side then? Like, did you, or were you?
I was always coaching on the side, and I was always shooting on the side.
Yeah. So you had like a full-time job and 2 side hustles.
100%. Yeah.
Busy dude.
Yeah, really.
But you played baseball, and you did it through college, right? So you're used to just operating on that schedule. You probably thrive on it, right?
I was also a lot younger too, but
there you go. It's okay. Age is a mentality, right, Bruce?
Yeah. But so originally, it got to a point where I was turning down big opportunities that I couldn't do and it would be like, hey, can you fly out, or can you come out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday? And
In the middle of the week, you can't.
Like, I really can't.
I wish I could.
Yeah, I wish I could. Or even for the Dream on 3 trips, you know, I was having to leave on a Thursday,
right,
and be gone the entire weekend, and it was like, okay, I'm taking PTO, or taking off, and there were just things I kept saying no to. So it came to a point, every time I was out and about, people were asking me like, hey, you going full time? You going full time yet?
Yeah.
When you going full time, man? I see you're busy.
It's like
bro.
the bug was in your ear constantly.
The entire time. And my biggest thing was like, even my wife, she was like, I just want you to be happy doing what you're doing. I mean, no one wants to, they can say it. No one really wants to be a robot going to an office and work every day. No one wants to do that.
No, nobody does.
So, then it got to a point where I just kind of took the leap. And of course, I don't want to give credit to it, but COVID also kind of pushed me to end up going full time, because, government, they started, furloughing and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, like, this is the time to do it.
Sure.
And I tell anybody that if like you're at home right now and you're thinking of making a transition, or
go for it.
Now
the same thing happened to me. And obviously, I had a lot of factors at the same time, which helped, because it put me in a place where now my back is against the wall and I don't have another option.
Yeah.
And I think that's the leap that people are afraid of, because they're like, well, what if it doesn't work out? And then they are like, oh my God, I won't have another option. And I can say from personal experience, like, I left a finance job, and to be honest, at the end of the day, my compensation was super similar because I did very well as a coach.
Right.
But if you put the numbers, if you put the time worked and those numbers on paper hourly, I was making way less money because I had to put 2 to 3 times the effort, but I didn't care because I was felt so rewarded from the job, right?
Yeah.
And so I operated from this place of like, you know what? I was 23 at the time when I first left the corporate path that everyone wanted me to go down. And I was like, you know what? I'll try it for a year, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to finance. That was the dumbest thing I ever said because it truthfully proved to be really hard to do that. For a while, I just felt frustrated, and I was like, I'm working Saturdays, I'm working Sundays, I'm seeing my friends who are like 25 and they can travel on the weekends. And the types of industries that we work in, you have to be okay with like knowing that you tend to work when other people are playing.
100%.
And if you're not cool with that, it's a huge thing you have to think long and hard about. And I didn't, to be totally honest. I didn't at the time because I just loved fitness so much. I figured I wouldn't care. Right. And then you have personal things happen in your life. People start getting married. You want to go on this vacation and you have to start saying no. And then you're like, wait, is this really what I wanted to sign up for? I do love this work, but now it's trickling into my social life. And like, that's a sacrifice that I'm not sure at 20 something I was ready to make. And so that's kind of where I started questioning if I had made the right decision, tried to go back into a corporate role, and was met with this mentality of, oh, you're a millennial, you're a job hopper, you're this, that, all the labels of, I looked confused, my resume was not fluid, but it also just wasn't traditional. I worked in the news industry and media all through college. All of my internships were in that sphere. Then I had one internship that landed me in finance, and that kind of predicted the trajectory for post-grad. But if I compiled it all together, I had to be really specific about how I packaged that messaging. And I throw shade at this all the time, but when you're being interviewed by somebody who's 50 something years old and has had the same job for 10 years, they don't understand me.
Well, more than 10 years.
Yeah. Right. Like they could be in that same position for 10 years, but they've been in the same industry for 20, right? So they think they're like, you did this, then you did that, and now you want to go do this other role. How does any of that translate? And in my head, I was like, I literally help someone start and run a business. I feel like I could go do just about anything other than like rocket science, right?
I agree.
Why can't that translate? So, you know, from my perspective, I think the hurdle I see with most people who are afraid, it's more of like, they don't have the confidence that if there is no backup plan, they can't do anything about it.
Right.
But as somebody who's sitting in that uncomfortable place of like, shit, I don't have a backup plan right now and this has to work, I have had more success and produced better product for my clients, I have better conversations. I'm more selective with my time because it's like you don't have any other option. So you better figure this out.
Yeah.
I needed that pressure. Some people don't do well in that environment. So what has that been like for you now that you have taken that leap? You think you would have done it sooner? Do you think COVID really did push you? Or let's say COVID didn't happen. You think you would still have multiple jobs right now?
Yep. 100%. I think that I would still be, yeah, I'm sure I would still be. And I worked graveyard shift when I was working there. So I was working like, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., like 3 to 4 times a week. So I was getting drugged.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, I was doing IT. I was getting paid extremely well. I was, had a lot of financial freedom.
Good benefits. Yeah, of course.
All that stuff was good.
Right.
But I was miserable going in there every day.
Right. It's like you have to weigh what's really going to make you happy. And
I always say you got one lap around this track of life.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't want to spend it like, just being miserable every day.
Right.
But the transition was like I said, I did doubt myself for sure. It's like, will I really be able to, pull in this income?
Sure. Because there's also no guarantee with us. It's like, yeah, we can work hard as hell to get as many clients as possible. We can invest in a good sales funnel, a good website, SEO. All those things cost money, which makes it hard because you want to have the income stream to keep reinvesting in the business. I think that's the toughest part. But it's not guaranteed that just because you put in all this effort, you're definitely going to get new clients.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can have like you said, all those things in the world. I can have, subscriptions being taken out of my account every month or, ads and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, I'm doing everything, but you're right. You're not guaranteed to succeed at it. But, and even I think fitness is probably the same way. As far as like, you can have a killer month or a killer week.
It's not consistent.
Right. Yeah. You can be like
100%.
Someone asks you, hey, what are you pulling a month? I was like, well, meaning
depends. What month are we talking about?
What scale are we on?
Right. So, like January for me, great month.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
August, not so much.
Yeah. It's like, are we in wedding season?
Yeah.
Season? Are people competing?
Sure.
Is the open coming up? Things like that. I mean, it varies. So I think that has a lot to do with just, I was concerned about, losing those guarantees are always hard to walk away from. But as far as, I'm probably the happiest I've been in my work, life, career, adulthood, I've ever been. So,
that's amazing.
It's like, I don't want to, now it's like, people want me to go back to IT. If like, are you interested? I'm like, not really, like I love where I'm at. Like I'm happy, very, very happy.
What drives you every day? What is kind of maybe it's a client response or something. What fills your cup from your work?
I think the satisfaction of, I love helping people and making people smile. I think knowing that my hard work is appreciated are things that I present to people, they appreciate and are very grateful for. I think that, like if I'm shooting a competition, like people have no idea. Like when you walk by and like, Bruce, you're killing it, or dap me up. Like, I love your work. You're awesome. Keep like that stuff keeps me going all the time. They may think they're just saying what's up, but like it's making the world to me. So, I think, and plus also being able to provide for my wife.
Of course.
That goes a long way and drives me to keep being creative and to book as many gigs as I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what within your relationship and, having a partner, what were those conversations like for you guys? I know you mentioned that she said she just really wanted you to be happy. Yep. What do you think it would have been like if, you didn't have her support, or maybe you were younger and you had like you were more intertwined with your parents and they were like, we think this is a terrible idea. Yeah, like, how would you have navigated something like that? And it sounds like you didn't have to, but.
Yeah. That's, it's really hard. I don't know. Of course, you can only try to do it behind closed doors for so long, do you just completely walk away from those who aren't supporting you and just, I'm going to do this on my own? Or do you try to convince them that you are worth, doing this? I couldn't imagine my spouse or my parents being like, what you're doing is like dumb and you're wasting your time. Like that would crush me, knowing that, of course you believe in yourself and you invest in yourself, but the people you love
We're
the most,
human beings. We want validation.
The people you love the most and, you think love you the most are like completely disagreeing everything you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were, like I said, they bought my first camera. So,
Right.
like, my dad talks to me every day. He was like, son, so proud. He was
I'm
like,
sure.
He's like, keep doing
And
what
you
you're
said he didn't even kind of realize until you pointed out to him, hey, Dad, you were kind of the person in my life growing up who always had a camera in his hand. And I think this passion came from that.
Yeah, and
He didn't even know the impact he was having
No,
on
I
you.
didn't. Like, I bought my dad a camera. I got him a
Nice.
camera.
That's awesome.
He shot a wedding here. And
Cool.
He calls me. He's like, hey, how do I take this setting? So it's real cool.
Yeah, that's fun that you can talk about that.
Yeah, I love it.
That's really nice. And I also think, too, photography is one of those skills, much like, I was a swimmer. And I've always appreciated the sport of swimming because I know I could do it forever. Like, when you get older and maybe you're not as mobile, it's a very low impact. I think that's something that's really cool about photography. It'll be something that you can always do.
As long as your knees don't go.
Right. Exactly.
You're good to go.
Yeah. So what do you see, if you were going to listen to this podcast a year from now? Where do you envision yourself going?
Ultimately,
What do you want to see from your business?
I would love to, of course, I would love to have, a few short films or documentaries under my belt. I would love to be on some sort of sports retainer, like either
with a professional team or something.
Or professional, branding line, something like that, where I'm just traveling all over and shooting.
What does it take are those kinds of jobs typically a word of mouth and somebody seeing your work and spotting you, what does that take?
I would say,
do you have to pitch?
I would say yes. First, of course, them noticing you, that kind of, I think that probably
goes without saying for any job.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would think you definitely need to have something to pitch to them or show them because if they reach out and say, hey, we're looking for something, you need to have something
to show them.
Portfolio
of course,
to show. So definitely that's why I want to, I'm actually starting to do more, documentary stuff and, interviewing and getting more vocals rather than just.
What got you interested in that? Did you feel like it was kind of like missing from the package?
Yeah. I mean, I just felt like, there's so many great stories to be told that, people don't get reached out to document, and there's things that people I know who have amazing stories that have done great things. And I feel like other people should know.
Anyway, I want to be sensitive to your time. We could talk forever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
unfortunately I do have a shoot today. So
totally cool.
One, yeah.
You gotta stay on top of it for your clients. Right. With that, what would you say for someone, I know we talked a little bit about advice for a newbie. What do you think are some of the smaller details, like showing up on time and, the whole idea of under promise, over deliver? What are some principles that you operate with? So, and then we'll move into our lightning round.
100%. What I like to focus on communication. Like I'm big on not long delays in between.
Sure, timelines too, with when you're going to deliver the final goods.
Right. Yeah. Being on time, courteous of other people's time. I'm always early. Just something I've always been. So.
And you never know if you're going to have an issue with your camera. You want to get set up and make sure you're ready for when an event could start, right?
Very, very true. Yeah. I'm all about just respecting others. I mean, it's not I don't have like a science to it, you know what I mean? But it's more of just when people interact with me, I just want them to know that okay, Bruce really does want to be here. He's not just here to collect a check.
Right.
He really enjoys spending time with me and we're laughing, we're kicking it, stuff like that.
You get to know each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for the intimate moments. If you're going to shoot someone's wedding, you really want to make them comfortable. But anyway, always wrap up my shows the same ways. Okay. Quick little lightning round, fun questions, nothing, that's groundbreaking. And I don't know what's going to come up. I just let it ride.
All right.
You ready?
Yep. So am I on a time limit? Or
it's just just answer. First thing that comes in your head. Sometimes they're one word questions. Sometimes they're you might want to talk for 10 seconds. It's cool. I'm not strict here on the show. Right, we just roll with the punches.
Let's go.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Who's your favorite sports team?
New York Yankees.
Love it.
Yep.
Nice. How'd that happen if you're from Virginia?
So Bernie Williams played for the Prince William Cannons, which was the AAA team in where I'm from in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
So I was a huge fan of Bernie Williams.
So it was because of him.
Yeah. And then Jeter was just a plus.
Yeah. Of course. Who doesn't love Derek Jeter? Yeah. Men and women alike, right?
Jeter's that dude.
Who's your favorite CrossFit athlete?
Oh man.
We could do male and female if you have two.
Oh, that's
hard
tough.
one.
I mean, yeah, that's tough, man. I do like. Of course, I love Brooke Wells. I like Brooke. I like Noah Olson. Of course, Matt Frazier,
Mm-hmm.
Rich. Yeah, I mean, that's a long list, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite workout? Whether that's a movement or maybe like a particular CrossFit workout.
Favorite, I would say power cleans. So I'm big on like, give me 20 minutes to find my max
Complex
power clean.
movement.
Yeah. That's me.
Least favorite exercise.
Overhead squat.
Okay.
Overhead, anything.
Is it just the overhead piece, or you don't like squats?
No, just the overhead piece.
Okay.
I'll take a back squat and front squat all day.
Okay.
But yeah, overhead squat, no, can't stand it. Or I don't like squat snatches either.
Okay.
Power,
Do you like snatches?
I do like snatches. Yeah,
me too.
I
That's
just
my favorite.
I just
move.
don't like squatting them.
That's
all.
fair.
Yeah. Hence the overhead squat.
There you go.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest challenge for you since transitioning to doing this full time? Like, what's something you still feel like you haven't mastered yet? Like, you're good with the camera, but maybe there's something about the business piece that you need to work on.
Definitely marketing. As far as, reaching out and following up with, hopefully, future clients or past clients. I think that's something I need to work on as far as keeping in touch with them and building more relationships outside of everyone who already knows me. I need to start reaching out to other sources of people.
I know you mentioned traveling a lot for some of the gigs that you have done.
Yep.
Probably not so much this past year,
No,
but as you were talking, I wanted to ask this earlier. Have you ever thought about whether Charlotte's not the market for you to stay in?
So,
because you have such a presence in this community here.
yeah.
So I think there's a ton of validity for you to say, but some of the gigs we're talking about for Bruce's future, like, do you belong in LA? I guess is my question.
So, it's so funny you brought that up.
Putting you on the spot. If you don't want to answer, it's okay.
Well, no, it's because, with Charlotte, I mean, I've always been a person of like, there's so much in this world. Like, there's so many places you can go and shoot. And it's like, is here really it? Like, is this,
exactly
where I was like,
and you have the flexibility.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what your wife does, but you have the flexibility to go somewhere.
I can fly and travel and I drive. Well, now drive. I can drive anywhere and shoot.
But you could also live anywhere too.
Correct. Yeah.
Because you can work remotely.
So there are
some cities on the short list.
Yeah. Me and my wife, we are discussing
a
possible relocation. So. Yeah, I would say
we're going to keep tabs on you. I'm curious. And like we said, because you're mobile, doesn't matter. If Bruce leaves Charlotte, doesn't mean he's not coming back. I mean, look at me. I come here every month, right?
I can still come back here and shoot anything.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Have really enjoyed it. Last but not least, what's your shameless plug? Where can we find you? How can we connect with you?
All right. So first of all, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Loved it. Pleasure finally physically meeting
Yes,
you.
I know.
Right.
For background for everyone listening, we interacted on social a bunch, tried to do a shoot, and then it rained the last time I was here.
Weather was awful.
Yeah. And then weirdly, the universe put Bruce and I like crossing paths down the street, and we were DMing at the same time, but I didn't even see him. So life is crazy like that, right?
Super funny. But so you can find me, of course, on IG at B.A.W _photo. My website is www.bawphoto.net. I also have a Instagram account that's my wedding and lifestyle stuff.
Nice. Okay.
That's just B.A.W Photography. So you can find me there. And other than that, you can catch me in these streets.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for everyone listening. As always, if you enjoyed this show, if you got anything from this message, please share it with a friend, maybe someone else who would benefit from hearing what we had to talk about today. Leave a review, drop a comment on social media. Be sure to follow Bruce. I will link all of your ways to access you and your Instagram accounts and all that good stuff and website down in the show notes too, so people can easily find it. This has been our latest episode of The Fix. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.